So basically, our department updates you, the public, with our consent decree progress. Unfortunately, we're unable to conduct that update in person, basically because of COVID-19. What we expect you to walk away with is that our department has made significant progress throughout the years from the beginning of the consent decree. According to the federal monitors as well as the Department of Justice, our department is vastly different, a complete 180 prior to the consent decree. And so we have built systems as well as measures in place to sustain these reforms long after any federal oversight. We have revised and implemented well over 200 plus policies for our department. These systems of accountability also helps to train our officers to provide better services to you, the public, as a whole. Prior to the consent decree, it had been years before we changed any type of policies, and our training was very lackluster. And so now we are at the forefront with other departments. We not only have instituted new training for our officers, but also for other jurisdictions as well. So we are a model for other agencies to follow. With our uses of force, we have the systems and the measures, of course, in place to monitor uses of force whenever they are used. Our uses of force have decreased in comparison to pre-consent decree, but also we have a use of force review board that we utilize where we come together, the deputy chiefs, the academy, the independent police monitor, the city attorney's office, as well as the federal monitors in the Department of Justice, and we review those uses of force to ascertain whether or not there was a training issue, whether or not the use of force was actually justified, or whether or not there was a policy change that needs to be incorporated. During this time of civil unrest, we see that our department is head and shoulders above any department across the country. Since the institution of the consent decree, our department has trained well over 37% of the officers in the field, which is far and above what the consent decree actually requires. And so our officers are trained to deal with those individuals who are in crisis. And so thereby, that reduces the number of uses of forces as well. With our department, especially with my bureau, we audit all stop searches and arrests. And just recently, we collaborated with the federal monitors as well as the Department of Justice to come up with a more robust audit process. And recently, we conducted an audit that's done by my bureau with civilian auditors, and they found no patterns and practices of unconstitutional policing. Now, mind you not, we did find deficiencies. And of course, we have those systems and those measures to take corrective actions when we do find those deficiencies. Basically because we, as a department, we have become self-governed, where we can actually look at our deficiencies and make those necessary corrections to move forward, to better serve the public. With our custodial interrogations, we have been in compliance with that particular area for quite some time now. There have been no intimidation factors noted. These individuals read their rights. And then, of course, our detectives actually record those custodial interrogations. At one point in time, we were falling short. And then, of course, once we put the systems and measures in place for signing the photographic lineups to ensure that they meet the requirements per the consent decree as well as best practices. We are in compliance with, and have been in compliance with that particular area for, I want to say, a couple of years now. The federal monitor would come and review the photographs themselves to ensure that the depiction of these individuals are similar and to ensure that when the detectives actually show these photographic lineups to a witness, that there's no directing the witness to point out who the perpetrator actually is. And so we have definitely been in compliance with that for a couple of years now. With the bias-free policing and gender-free bias, our police department has a robust training for bias-free policing, but also we have been in compliance with domestic violence, with our special victims units with sexual assaults, as well as gender-free bias with our LGBTQ community as well. We have a liaison for our community engagement and a liaison for our LGBTQ community as well. And so with our bias-free policing, it's one of those areas that it's difficult to measure and to audit. We're collaborating with the Department of Justice as well as with the federal monitors to come up with an audit process that actually monitor and see if in fact there's bias within our department. Our engagement starts with trust first. And so many of the outreaches that our department actually conduct builds that trust. Because before we can actually conduct engagement, which is solving the community's problems within, we have to gain that trust. And I think that we've done an excellent job of gaining that trust, and we're building upon that as well within the confines of this civil unrest and the broad generalization of policing as a whole. Our department, let's say Christmas toy giveaways. Some may see that as, that's not doing much. However, giving a child and a parent who is struggling right now a gift to give to their child not only changes that particular moment, but it changes that child and that mother and their father's perspective of the New Orleans Police Department. That these officers have done something, have taken the time out of their busy schedule to actually do something nice for my child. Taking a page from the military, the NFL, or the NBA, we have to reach the youth at a very young age and encourage them to not just pursue policing, but if they see a police officer doing the right thing, serving the community, and being the law enforcement professional as we are, that could encourage them actually to become a law enforcement professional along the line. Whether it's the policing, whether it's the FBI, whether it's the CIA or DA, whatever the case may be. The recruitment has been excellent during the consent decree for our department. Even in the midst of this COVID-19 and civil unrest, we have met benchmarks, and we're continuing to recruit as we speak now. The numbers are a little bit lower than what we would like to see. However, as opposed to other departments across the country who are actually eliminating or losing officers on a daily basis and have shut down some of their academies because they can't recruit, period, our department has continuously recruited, and individuals are constantly wanting to be a part of the New Orleans Police Department. Because of the fact that, again, that we are at the forefront of constitutional policing and reforms, bar none. Our academy stands head and shoulders above any academy in the United States. Just recently, we conducted a symposium for other law enforcement agencies on how to properly conduct an academy. We even have gone far and above the number of hours required by Louisiana Post, which requires a number of hours of training. Our department has gone well above that. We have increased our numbers well over the percentages, and the mandates on in-service has been great. We have a board that actually meets to have the lesson plans reviewed, to codify all the training. And so it comes full circle, basically because with my bureau, the audits that are conducted, whatever deficiencies that we are actually seeing within the department itself, that's relayed back to the academy, and then the academy adjusts their in-service training to address those deficiencies. We have a robust peer intervention program. We know that officers will rely upon each other and talk to each other more so than anyone else. And so we have a peer-to-peer intervention program where officers can lean upon each other. These are individuals that are actually trained to just talk to the officers. But also we have counselors as well. We have one individual who is responsible for speaking to the officers if further services are needed. She will refer those officers out. But also we have one of the first in the country. Ethical policing is courageous. And so this was first brought about with us looking at ourselves, taking a hard look at ourselves within the police department. How can we actually prevent any type of misconduct? And so because of the fact that officers rely upon each other and they're out in the field with each other, how can, if we were in the field, how can you prevent me from conducting a misconduct? And that would be active bystandership. And so not only from peer to peer, but also incorporating that, whereas the officers actually can intervene for a supervisor up the chain of command and down the chain of command. And even just recently, we held our third annual Ethical Policing is Courageous symposium with well over 300 police departments from across the country. And so they are eager to learn from our department because, again, we are at the forefront of policing and constitutional policing, I should say, as well as reforms. And it has morphed now into active bystandership for all law enforcement. And this was in collaboration with Georgetown University, with the federal monitors, and now it's going to be taught at the FBI National Academy. Most officers want to know how they're doing, how can they improve, and how can they best serve the police department itself. And so basically what we're doing, we've revamped our entire evaluation process. Prior to, there was this bubble that the supervisor was actually just scroll in and scribble in and give a number to the direct report, and that was basically it. But now we have changed the evaluation process, whereas the supervisors have to give specific examples of whether the direct report is deficient or how great the direct report is actually doing. And so basically throughout the year, the supervisors are mandated to house this information in what we call the supervisory feedback log. And so think of it as a tickler file on the direct reports. So throughout the year, they'll house all this information in, and then at the end of the year, when they conduct their performance evaluation, they can actually go back to the supervisory feedback log and see how well or where deficient the direct report is, and sit down with their direct reports and go over the performance evaluations. But not only that, we also have what's called the self-evaluation, where the direct report will actually conduct an evaluation on themselves. Let's think of it as a self-love, because if I want to know where I'm at, where can I improve, and how can I contribute to the police department, I'm going to house that in my self-evaluation, and then I'll submit that to my supervisor, and the supervisor will verify the information that I've housed in my self-evaluation. This not only helps the direct report, but it also helps the supervisor gain further insight as to the thinking and the mentality of their direct report and how they want to move forward to further the police department. What we've done is that under the direction of Superintendent Ferguson, we have created what is called the Supervisory Initiative. And so within the Supervisory Initiative, it gives our supervisors the tools necessary to not only become better leaders, but also to manage better as well. And so we are finalizing the supervision initiative. It's going to be instituted within and throughout the police department. But not only that, my bureau will also review the supervision initiative to ensure that these measures are actually taking root within the police department. And the initiative itself, all of the content within the initiative was actually instituted and drafted by captains, by lieutenants, as well as sergeants to move the police department forward. Secondary employment was one of the first areas that our police department came into compliance with.
Okay.
That's been quite a few years ago. If many of you recall, during the Department of Justice first review or audit of the New Orleans Police Department, it was stated it was the order of corruption. And so now the secondary employment is a separate entity from the police department. They actually schedule the officers and pay the officers. And within secondary employment, for those of you that don't know, that's the off-duty details,
Right.
that our officers actually do to supplement their income. Individuals did not feel safe enough to file complaints with the police department pre-consent decree. They felt as though that the investigations were not being properly addressed. But since then, of course, we have the measures and the systems in place. Our Public Integrity Bureau is now under the direction of a civilian attorney, and we have gained substantial compliance in this particular area. As far as the complaints, individuals can file complaints anonymously. They can file through the Public Integrity Bureau. We've also have the complaint forms within the districts. We have the complaint forms at public areas where they can actually fill out the forms and turn them into the Public Integrity Bureau. The investigations are timely, and the credibility assessments of the individuals being interviewed or conducting the investigation itself has been audited by the federal monitors. And again, we have sustained substantial compliance. And hopefully, within the next few months or so, we can gain full compliance in this particular area. As a department, we know that transparency and oversight is instrumental in sustaining these reforms. We have been in compliance with that because of our open data policy. Our annual reports speak to that itself, that individuals can actually review on the city's website, that we place on this particular website every year. The oversight comes from not only my bureau, but also from the Independent Police Monitor's Office, as well as the federal monitors in the Department of Justice. And so we have gained compliance in this particular area because we, again, have led the country in our transparency as far as open data, as well as our oversight with our audit processes and with the collaborating with the Independent Police Monitor as well. This is the police department, and we saw it as an opportunity to become the police department that we always wanted to be. And so we embraced these reforms and embraced these changes by putting together a team of change agents who not only wanted to change the police department from within, but also institutionalize all these reforms far and beyond any federal oversight. Now, we do understand that there will always be skepticism about the progress that we as a department has made. And we understand that. That's why it's extremely important for us to continue our community engagement, to continue our transparency, to continue to take a long, hard look at ourselves constantly, because reforms are not just for the moment. Reforms are always ongoing, because we always want to take the best practices right? Or come up with these innovative best practices to improve ourselves as the police department through the eyes of the community.